guys, it's Sam, and this is my spoiler-free review for Shadows of Self by Brandon Sanderson. This is the second book in the second Mistborn trilogy, and this was my Bibliothecary book pick for the month. So every month my Bibliothecary supporters get to vote in a poll for a book that I'll read and review, and this is the one that won. So if you're interested in contributing to my content in that way, along with an exclusive Discord, exclusive monthly vlogs, tarot card readings, polls on various things about content, a ton of stuff, I will link the Bibliothecary on the screen. So as I said, this is the second book in the series, so I can't go into a ton of detail, but this follows our main character of Wax, who is, his full name is Waxilium. And he is from a noble family, but for years was living out in the roughs, which is essentially like the Wild West, and has returned to the city recently in the first book, and gets pulled into some of the like sort of political machinations slash just like criminal stuff going on, starts working with like the local police, things like that. So this is continuing on from that first book and some of the things we learned there. So first let me talk about the world building. This, like I said, is already a second book in a series based on another series. So we have the original Mistborn trilogy, which I do recommend reading before you read this. I mean, you technically could go into this having not read it, but I think this series is so much more valuable for having the Easter eggs of all the stuff that we know about the first series. What I really like about this series, world building wise, is you have the really cool magic system that we established in the first book, all around metals, either being able to store powers in metals or ingest metals and use different abilities and all of this stuff that everyone talks about when they talk about Mistborn. But the added element of the world building here is that basically all of what's, not quite all of society, but I would say all of like religion and tradition and everything is based on events from the first books. Like the first book's events turn into like legend and legendary people and religious figures, which really impact how the society is running today. So I really liked that, and getting to see these characters, it's like, oh my gosh, these were the characters, they're talking about this person from the first book or like this thing. So that's really fun for having read the whole series. Next, let me talk about our characters. Our characters are fun and they grow on me, and they're getting a little bit more like fleshed out as the series goes on. I feel like the first book was very much like, okay, this is sort of like a Wild West, rogue lawman type situation, and like very sort of, not completely like two-dimensional, but just kind of not as, you know, well developed and complex as I would like. And they're getting a little bit more complexity throughout. I actually found the villain in this one pretty interesting because it's a kind of character that we've seen before from the first series, but not like this. And just the way that villain was used was, I think, really interesting. And we do have Wax as a character getting more sort of dynamic. Wayne as a main character, there's like a main but also a side, but you see his POV, is also just like really interesting because he's like brash and like eccentric, and he's just funny. I could definitely see this as like a show on HBO or something. And lastly, we'll talk about our plot. This is again sort of like the first book, this like mystery situation, trying to figure out like a whodunit, usually surrounding like, you know, murders and stuff like that. But this one, like I was saying, tied in more world building elements from the first book, and there are a lot more hints to a much bigger picture in this series. So this is touching much more on like what the grander themes are going to be. And I should have known, but it's been a while since I've read a Sanderson book. The ending was really, really good and had some twists that I was like, I just didn't see coming. And I should know by now that Sanderson does endings like extremely well, and that like something was gonna happen, but I just wasn't expecting it because this series is much more like, you know, kind of whatever for me. So the ending really pulled things together, and just like throughout, like I said, the fact that it's building on something much greater helped this one to be a little bit better than the first book for me, and I really am more enthusiastic now about continuing on this series. So I gave this one 3.75 to 4 stars. Really enjoyed it. Like I said, would like to continue, and these are a little bit easier to read than his giant chunky books. So comment below, let me know what you thought of Shadows of Self. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see all of you guys soon. Bye.